You're listening in on an animated discussion about the new Batman adventures with two experts in their fields. I'm Joshua Unruh, superhero scholar.
And I'm Caleb Masters, your friendly neighborhood film critic extraordinaire from the Cinematropolis.com. And today's topic is the first episode of the new Batman Adventures, Holiday Nights. Joshua, there are two elephants in the room I have to get out. Just get off my chest. Two. I have two bones to pick with this. It's not even this episode. It's more like how this episode is packaged and released.
Yes. It's weird, and we need to talk about it just in case there are listeners who get confused. So, yes, I agree. What is your issue?
So two issues. Let's start with the bigger one first. One, this is labeled incredibly, it's confusing. It is, okay, I own the Blu-rays. Joshua, let's talk about how we are consuming this watch. I own the Blu-rays, where this is packaged in as Season 3 of Batman the Animated Series, even though it has a new animation and it has all the redesign elements. So there is no reference to the title, The New Batman Adventures. Also, if you owned the old DVDs, Batman the Animated Series Volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, those were also labeled as all under Batman the Animated Series. And if you streamed the episode on YouTube or Amazon or any of those streaming services before the DC Animated Universe, it was also lumped under Batman the Animated Series and not the new Batman Adventures. However, Joshua, you were watching this on the DC Universe. How is it packaged on that streaming service?
It's packaged as the new Batman Adventures. Which is particularly interesting because when the show actually changed to the Adventures of Batman and Robin, that is not reflected on the DC Universe app. So I am not sure what their choices are based on at all. So friends, at the end of the day, what we're telling you is, depending on how you are consuming this, you may have to look under Batman the Animated Series Volume 4 or Season 3, or you may have to look for the new Batman Adventures Season 1 and Season 2.
My recommendation is to focus on the titles of the episodes, honestly.
Yes.
But regardless, this is frustrating for a couple of different reasons, Joshua. So let's talk about, historically though, Batman the Animated Series ended its run, I want to say, in like 95. They did Superman for a year, and they came back with the new Batman Adventures in 97. And yes. This Batman continues the continuity from Batman the Animated Series largely. Uses the same voice cast most of the time. And it even makes references to previous episodes of Batman the Animated Series. However, was launched as the new Batman Adventures when it aired. Differences. One, Batman the Animated Series aired on Fox. And this is when we saw Batman make his first appearance on WB, which, by the way, another interesting change, apparently the censors on WB were a lot lighter or less harsh than they were on Fox because, as we'll talk about later, they used references like killing and murdering using the actual words, which is something we saw a lot less of in the animated series. And, of course, you have the animation style and the show, honestly, the show format that is a lot more consistent with Superman, the animated series.
Yeah, that's why I'm actually glad that the DC Universe makes the distinction, because I do not think that the new Batman Adventures is the same show as Batman, the animated series. I think that if you are going to change as fundamental a thing as your storytelling technique and your art style, even if you keep the continuity, even if you keep the voice cast overall, it is a different show. And the break of a few years in between them doesn't help either. So I actually, we've been talking about the redesign for a long time. I wish that I had just started saying the new Batman Adventures then, because I've always basically thought of them as two different shows that share elements.
And that's the difference between me is I've generally thought of them as one show, but that said, with some massive style and storytelling differences with following the redesign or in the new Batman Adventures. So I don't know. It's up to the listener. You decide. Is it the same show? Is it two separate shows? But Joshua is right. There's no doubt about it. Outside of just the surface level, hey, we have a new art direction. The way the show is structured, the way they do 2 and 3 parters, the way they resolve, the way there are crossovers, all of it is different than it is in Batman the Animated Series. So there's no title card anymore. It's just a different. It is a different show. But one could argue it's the same show, or at least people at the Warner Brothers marketing department seem to think so sometimes.
Sometimes, right? So we're actually interested. Please, listeners, chime in. Let us know what you think. How fundamental a shift does it have to be before it's a new show? But the main reason we bring this up is so that you can find the episode no matter where you're watching it or how you're watching it. It's confusing, and they won't stop making it confusing.
And just to highlight how confusing it is, Joshua and I, before recording, actually had a 5+ minute talk about how we were going to frame this. So, for listeners tuning in today, moving forward, when we talk about this show, we will refer to it in the introduction as the new Batman Adventures to kind of clear things up. That said, we may throw in some gentle reminders for people who are tuning in for the first time. Again, I think that a lot of folks out there, I would say the vast majority of people out there probably refer to it all in one package. So, again, I say focus on the title of the episode and less on the series, because the series is just kind of a can of worms. So, Joshua, I do have another bone to pick with this. Now, that was a series shift, marketing shift problem I have with how they're putting this out there. My second problem is with this episode, and not with the content of this episode. I have different problems with that. I have a problem with this being the first episode of the new Batman Adventures. It makes no sense. It doesn't make chronological sense. It doesn't make it. This is a holiday episode they released in September. None of it makes sense. Why is this the first episode when they have characters they introduced, like Robin? Tim Drake Robin is in this episode, but we don't meet him until the following episode.
Right?
It doesn't make sense. Because initially I thought, hey, this was probably like a one-off holiday special they threw together to kind of tease the redesign coming the following year. I was sure that was it. Like, they put it out in the Thanksgiving Christmas window of '96 with the redesign launching the following fall. No, this was the first episode they put out in September. I'm flabbergasted. And also, it's an anthology episode, even more flabbergasted. So I do wonder what the history is of this episode. Like, when was it produced? Why was this the first one put out? Who made the call to put this out first? Because I think this is a fun holiday treat. I don't think it's a strong or fitting first episode to the new series. I think of it as a fun thing you play on, as a holiday special. Genuinely, I think it's a great little holiday treat right before Christmas morning. So that is a problem I have, Joshua. What are your thoughts on that? Did that bother you as much as it did me, or am I just off my rocker?
So I kind of like that they're keeping the tradition of completely inexplicable first episodes from BTAS. Because if you'll recall, the first in the production order is On Leather Wings, which actually on our rewatch turned out to feel like a really good intro episode, except it's also the one that was not shown first because they wanted to capitalize on the new popularity of Catwoman after Batman Returns. So instead, they inexplicably ran all of those Catwoman origin episodes, or not origin episodes, but introduction episodes. So part of me, this perverse little nugget inside me, really likes that they are continuing the tradition, whether they meant to or not, of inexplicable introductory episodes.
The only thing I got, Josh, is Batman and Robin came out the summer before this aired. So 3 months before, so maybe they're Poison Ivy popularity and Batgirl popularity, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. But the other nice thing I think about an anthology episode is that we get to kind of take a tour and reconnect with a bunch of characters, because this is a pretty sizable shift in the status quo. Like we were talking about, they want to trade in the continuity of BTAS, but the status quo is very shifted. Where'd Dick go? Who is Tim? Barbara's got a new outfit, which we'll talk about in a minute. Is she still part of the squad? What are the villains like? I mean, so an anthology episode lets us kind of do like an overview of where some people are and reintroduce us to people.
Wait. Hold on. I think you're making a great point. I do have to beg the question though, and I'm not normally a stickler about details like this, but I have to throw it out there. Did they say specifically that this Robin was Tim, or was he just Robin? Because then my question would be, why is Robin so short and tiny now? Why is his voice higher pitched? I don't understand.
You make a fine point, because when we talk about the redesign of everybody, we are not going to talk about a redesign of Tim Drake because they didn't name him and we didn't see him. We're only going to talk about Robin. Yeah, I don't want to say it's less confusing if it's reintroducing you, because it doesn't really do the job of reintroducing everybody, but I don't mind it. And again, that perverse part of me really likes that it's inexplicable. So
fair enough point. I just and again, I think this is a fun episode to talk about. Pending the release of this episode, I think it's going to come out at just the right time for listeners to enjoy a little holiday treat themselves. But I was going down when we were talking about what episode we were going to do first, this or the Sins of the Father, which is the actual. It seems to me, and we'll talk about it when we get to that episode. It seems to me, as I remember, and based on reading the premise, I was like, oh, this is the first episode of the and because they're introducing new characters but no, they decided to air Holiday Nights first. But it's fun. I all this negativity aside, this is a fun episode. I love anthologies. And we're going to talk about the designs here in a moment. I generally dig most of the redesigns quite a lot. And I don't necessarily think any of these anthology, I would say with an anthology story, you're always looking at a mixed bag, almost universally. Yeah. And I think this is pretty consistent.
Even if they're all good, one of them is always going to be the best.
The best one. Right. So, I mean, and my takeaway was that, I just thought it wasn't as consistent across the board, but that doesn't make it any less fun. I honestly feel, if this were released today, I feel like they would have packaged these as like a little mini web series that they drop on YouTube around, like between the Thanksgiving and Christmas or something.
Oh, yeah. They did do Gotham Girls webtoons at the time. I don't know exactly when that happened, and they, I think, have disappeared into the ether, but yeah, that would have been super dope. I wish they'd done that, honestly.
Because at that point, you're not comparing the three together, kind of looking at them all as they're standalone, and they're not designed to be a big, meaty episode. They're kind of designed to be, that's a fun little thing I can watch for, 5 to 7 minutes. But anyway, it's still a strong outing, and I don't know. I'm a fan. I'm not a fan of where they put it, but I am a fan of the episode.
So let's transition into our discussion of the redesigns, which possibly as a mercy to our listeners is a much shorter list than it has been the last two giant-sized episodes, because we already dealt with most of the primary players, right?
Right. Yeah. We've already talked at nauseam about how we are let down by Batman and the Joker, but love the Harley redesign and the Gordon redesign. I think we've covered most of the heavy hitters so far.
So starting here, just kind of moving chronologically, our first new redesign is Poison Ivy, which I think she got a great makeover. Honestly,
100%. I think. Oh no, this is her first design was all right and certainly fit the aesthetic they were going for. This design, though, I feel like is actually, in my mind, a little more iconic when I think of Poison Ivy. She's got that paler, greener skin. She's dressed even more promiscuously or designed to be a little more seductive, which kind of feels gross sometimes, but I think aesthetically fits this series and also fits the character as we've come to know her. I like this design quite a lot.
I am legitimately confused by our decision to suddenly make almost every female character on this show pale as ghosts, but they are all different shades of pale. So I don't think it was out of laziness, but I nevertheless am curious about it. And to be honest, I think by this point in the comics, Poison Ivy was pretty on the label as mostly a plant monster woman. You know, I think they're still playing her as mostly human right now. So I'm fine with it either way. Like, it bridges the gap. But that is a thing that's going to keep coming up. We've seen it with Harley, which makes sense because she has makeup, but we're going to see it again with Catwoman. When we get to Catwoman, I have so many questions. So I'm going to plant a flag there. I'm just curious. What is the deal with that? But overall, yeah, huge glow up for Poison Ivy. And I would say huge glow up for our next big introduction, Batgirl.
Joshua, this is one of my favorite redesigns. Just throwing that out there. It's top. It's probably top 5.
Yeah, I mean, Barbara Gordon's fine. Like, let's say Barbara Gordon, because technically Barbara Gordon starts first, right? She's fine. She still looks like Barbara. I should have said this about Bruce Wayne in our last episode, but I'm a little confused by their decision to make everybody who has blue eyes look like they have no eyes. I'm a little confused by that choice.
Right,
but other than that, Barbara's great. But Batgirl is like...
phenomenal.
Strap a rocket to that, and it is so good.
It's when I think of Batgirl from the series, I honestly think of this version first. It is probably in my mind one of the most iconic versions of Batgirl that my at least in my mind always gravitates towards when I think about Batgirl. I like it because I feel like it matches her style more. I never got it, even when we were watching those episodes in Batman the Animated Series, it was great that she showed up, but I actually, unlike some of the characters that they make skinnier and shorter, I actually like that she looks a little smaller, but way more like, she gets around more. Like, her doing like the acrobatics and stuff looks way sleeker and faster and more believable in this version, I think. I love the cape. I love how they use the mask highlights her non-eyes. I love how fast she's able to move.
I'm not going to beat that horse forever, but for real, you guys, what was going on with all of our blue-eyed people are just going to basically have no eyes? What is that? Anyway, okay, I'm done. That's the last time I'll bring it up, I swear.
I just think she just looks more nimble and faster. And yeah, I love this design.
That is actually a legit thing worth talking about that's kind of part of the overall redesign, is that a lot of these redesigns are better, and in some of them are significantly better, and some of them are worse, and some are significantly worse. But whatever we lose or gain in the look and the flattening out of colors, we gain a lot in fluidity of animation. The action in this series, as opposed to BTAS, is always 2 steps ahead. It is so good.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I actually like the Robin redesign quite a bit. It's tricky to say redesign because technically it's a new Robin altogether. Yeah. But I don't know. I buy it more. Like, it's a cleaner look. Because he's younger, again, it just kind of fits. When I think of Robin and the traits about Robin that always come to mind, it just aligns more with the things that I know Robin can do. Again, acrobatics being a big part of it. I always think slimmer and smaller. And I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that? Maybe I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Let's keep it in the Bat family, right? And talk about Robin, because I love this costume. And here is your comic book stuff behind the scenes. So the Robin costume that showed up in BTAS being worn by that version of Dick Grayson is actually the comic book Tim Drake's first costume. And I don't mind telling you, it's the first Robin costume that did away with the bare legs and pixie boots.
Yes.
Now, I should say technically there were stories about Earth 2 that showed a grown-up Dick Grayson that got rid of them. But as far as like the main continuity of the DC universe, Tim Drake wore the BTAS Robin outfit first in the comics, and it was a big deal that they redesigned and updated the Robin costume and got rid of pixie boots and bare legs. So I love that costume because Tim Drake is, honest to goodness, my Robin. But I love this one more. This one is so good, and it really is. It looks so much better standing next to Batman. And even if you think about like color wheel stuff, green is traditionally a more villainous color in comic books. So getting rid of the green is very cool. The most shocking thing to me is that they took almost 10 years to get Tim Drake in the comics into this costume.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. It just feels like, because now it's funny thinking about this now. This is the Tim Drake costume. I mean, we see this. This is what carries over into, of course, the Batman Beyond stuff, but also, I mean, Teen Titans. This is the look. This is what sticks, I think. And even Teen Titans Go leans on this design, I would say.
Yeah, it kind of splits the difference. That's interesting. One more thing, too, about and then finally, 9 years later, integrating this into the regular comic book. I want to give a shout out to whoever did that, because they actually took this outfit and improved on it slightly when they moved it into the comic books. So... which before I saw what they did, I would have said was impossible. Like, this is too good. But they scalloped the cape so that Robin has a scalloped cape like Batman's,
Right.
and did a few other tweaks that really took this already great costume and made it a little bit better. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this Robin design.
Yeah, awesome. Well, take us back to the chronological, though. We get our not introduction, but the sort of redesigned Montoya in this episode.
I had to mention her because I'm so happy that she's here, and I think she becomes a bigger deal in the new Batman Adventures, but we also do not really get a new design for her because she's dressed like Santa's elf the entire time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's about it. By the way, we already talked about Harvey Bullock's redesign, but Harvey Bullock's Santa kind of hilarious. Just gotta say,
yes.
I lost it.
Put a pin in it because I want to come back to all of that. His character in that outfit is so good. It's
great. It's great. Well, what about Clayface? Clayface.
Wait, I have one more thing to say about Montoya. That is not me beating the horse of weird female flesh tones, but I will say that on this show of weird female flesh tones, I love that Montoya is immediately recognizable as a woman of color, even in this very simplified design. Big fan of that choice. She looks different than the villainesses, who tend to be very pale. She looks different than Barbara Gordon, and I approve. Good choice.
Nice. Yeah. I honestly hadn't even considered that. So good note. Clayface, on the other hand, is kind of just, he's Clayface, looks about the same, a little more streamlined, a little more simplified. Colors, a little more, I would say the colors might be a little darker even, but
it's basically Clayface. I mean, just like we've talked about with Bullock, it's basically the same guy, just redesigned, fitting a little flattening of the color, However, I'm not sure that there is another character who benefits from the fluidity of the new animation more than Clayface.
Yeah, he's a great example. I think people, again, it's the bigger character like him and Bullock, I think.
Well, I mean in his transformations, which you could tell were kind of pushing the envelope of what BTAS was able to do.
Oh, yes,
definitely. But in here, there's just like, we're doing this, we're doing that. And when like heads erupt out of his open Clayface mouth, I'm like, that's gross and I want to puke, but it looks amazing. So good.
Yeah. Good notes there. And I have some things to say about Clayface when we get to that point. But, gotta mention out there, the introduction of Joker's cronies, mostly the Three Stooges, Mo, Lar, and Kerr. Yeah, these guys are hilarious. I love it.
I mean, they don't really sound like their Three Stooges counterparts, but the visual is so striking that it's just basically, what if the Three Stooges were all guys that could bench press 200, It's great. I really appreciate that that's the kind of henchman that the Joker would choose.
Well, and they were economical with their voice actors in this one because they had Ron Perlman voice. I can't remember which one, but one of them was voiced by Ron Perlman, who also voices Clayface. At the end of this episode, we're going to have Perry White voicing a bartender. So,
they definitely were like, who's around? Come in here and do a voice right quick,
Right. Well, Joshua, I think it hits on the redesigns. Let's go ahead and jump into these different vignettes and talk about which. I mean, firstly, just knowing our general biases, I would say that we're both pretty pro the Harley and Ivy storyline. I don't feel like it's very substantive, but it is a lot of fun.
I'll tell you what, it does. It does a few things that I think have some substance, but kind of subtextually. Like, whether they meant it to or not, this is our first reintroduction to Harley Quinn, and she is not with the Joker. She is instead living her best life with her Queen of Crime girlfriend, Poison Ivy, and I am here for it. Now, obviously that doesn't stick because we flashed forward to World's Finest and she's back with the Joker. We'll figure that out as we go. But I love that they're just like holed up in this terrible Flophouse. And I love that Harley is lamenting the lack of Christmas cheer and that Poison Ivy's like, all right, honey, I'll fix it. It's so good. I love it. I love their relationship.
Oh, I love how playful it is. And, them messing around with Bruce Wayne's fun. I just got a weird sense that Bruce Wayne wouldn't have fallen for such an obvious trip. But also,
well, that's the thing. I don't think he was. We watched it. He wasn't really fooled. He was already mobbed by women, and then another one comes up and just plants one on him, and it's like, that's it. You're mind controlled, because that's what one of the things that Poison Ivy does.
Yeah, right.
I will say that there is a big narrative thing that they do in this vignette that I love. It's a really cool thing, and now I'm going to tell you about it. And if you've never seen it before, you're now going to see it everywhere. Okay.
All right.
We have what's called a 3-beat with Christmas trees. For those of you who are not familiar, a 3-beat is when an item or a situation or a statement or something like an element appears 3 times in the same story. And the way that it usually goes is the first one establishes, the second one reinforces, and then the third one subverts. And the third one always comes at the end. Like, that's how it works. Now that I have shown you the magic of the 3-beat, you are going to see it constantly. It is everywhere. 3 is like a magical storytelling number to human beings. And I don't know if there's science on that, but it's true. Like, you get things the third time,
There are 3 vignettes.
Oh, like trilogies are always, we think in terms of trilogies. It's a real thing. So in this case, you have Harley asking for a Christmas tree, just asking for one, and Poison Ivy saying, absolutely not. We establish. The second time, as they're running past during their shopping spree, and Harley's like, but a tree, and you reinforce the first situation by Poison Ivy even more emphatically saying, no. And then finally, you subvert the whole thing because the thing that Harley wanted all this time is actually the tool of her downfall. And when Ivy gives her a hard time, are you happy now? Her honest answer is yes. And that's the subversion. So welcome to the wide world of 3-beats, friends.
Woo, 3 beats for life. Yeah, that's a good little storytelling observation. I hadn't noticed that. I have heard that rule. I hadn't considered it in the context of this episode. I think that's a good beat. Good storytelling. I will say these are all very short, so again, it's hard to get a good super meaty
they're
story.
Not deep. Yeah, they're not deep.
Even in that short, I'd say 8 or so minutes we have of this little story. Yeah, you do get kind of like a little bit of a subversion there, and it's fun, and it kind of ends on a little bit of a punchline, which is very fitting for Harley Quinn as well.
Exactly.
I thought the montage was a lot of fun. Shopping montages, when effectively executed, I quite enjoy, and I thought this one was well executed. I love it when they do the whole riding the train through the nothingness. I love it. The shopping carts. I love all that stuff.
Also, the fashion show is legit. It's so good. Like, they put these 2 women in all of these different fashion plate outfits that look fantastic.
Right.
I was just really impressed with the work that went into the fashion show part of the montage also.
Yeah, which actually brings me to a separate point. And this applies to all 3, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. So the Blu-rays obviously came out over a year ago now, and I had watched some of the redesign episodes just for fun, but I want to say I hadn't really considered it, or maybe I'd forgotten, but watching this series, I remember when I bought the Blu-rays, I said, how much better is this series going to look with the up conversion? Because obviously it was already done in a more modernized animation style using computers. And I gotta say, it still pops really well. Even though this is a streamlined animation and there are less colors, they are very effective use of shaders. So when Batman walks into a blue room, the blue pops way more than I think it did in the OG series versus he's in a red room or light room. They use it's really good at capturing the different kind of neon colored lights they put out there for Christmas.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We saw Christmas episodes in BTAS and they didn't look this good. And even after the upgrade, even after they cleaned it up, it still didn't look this good. They're embracing the colors that you can do for Christmas in this new animation style.
Right. And it doesn't look like, I feel like if they had tried the same treatment with the old animation style, it would have looked kind of tacky versus here with the more streamlined kind of animated look, or like more simplified look, I should say. It works. It works a lot better. It looks fantastic in 1080p, I have to say. So kudos again to the folks at WB for the successful up conversion, because I think it works well for both animation styles. So, Joshua, I guess that's going to wrap up. If nothing else to add, that's going to conclude what we think of December 22nd. So let's go ahead and move on to Christmas Eve, December 24th. And it opens with Bullock and Montoya playing Santa and the Elf in a mall. And with Barbara Gordon standing nearby, you know.
Okay. I could not love this more. Like, Bullock is, by turns, the worst and the best human being.
Yes.
And we know that is consistent with his character as we've seen it. I love Santa Bullock, and Montoya's barely able to side-eye put up with his nonsense is delight. I would have watched an entire spinoff that was just Bullock and Montoya doing cop stuff.
I think it could be a fun spinoff, or at least a miniseries, at least. I mean, come on. It's so funny because firstly, they're already kind of uncomfortable, and hearing him say, little boy with this weird like accent, little boy, what do you Santa want? And he's like, what's your name? And he's like, I sent that kid's dad up the river about 3 months ago.
Right.
And then,
oh my God.
And then he says, I'll get you anything you want, just not a hacksaw, implying that his father used a hacksaw to like commit a crime. And you're like, oh God.
Oh, I thought that was just an implication. Don't buy him anything that will help him break out of jail. Oh my God. But it works both ways, and that's terrifying. Yikes.
So that was a good bit of comedy. I don't know if we would have gotten that degree of comedy. And again, this is a shift. Not that Batman the Animated Series wasn't funny at times, but I don't feel like it would have leaned as heavily into the comedy as this particular scene did.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when we did have more purely comedic episodes of BTAS, like I Have Batman in My Basement, we skipped it for a reason. Right. We didn't cover it on the podcast because it's not the best episode.
Not great.
Whereas this works really beautifully. Yeah.
Okay, so as listeners might recall, we last saw Clayface falling off a cliff and dissolving in the water. And he is back and it's like, and they even played it like, that's the last time we're going to see Clayface. And I know it's a superhero story. I know it's based on a comic book. I know villains come back all the time. I just thought it was hilarious that there was absolutely zero reference to like, what is he doing back here? Like, it was just like, Clayface is up to no good again. And he's back, and the crime he's committing is shoplifting?
Okay, now, I am not going to argue that the shift between the last Clayface episode we had that was so full of actual human pathos and this one that is just goofy, I'm not going to argue that is not a massive shift. I am going to say that as far as criminal schemes go, this one is not grandiose, but it is incredibly effective. Incredibly effective. In a Christmas rush, a bunch of kids stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars of small merchandise and then walking around the corner and changing into a different kid to go do it in a different store. This is a brilliant little cottage industry that Clayface has set up for himself.
It also kind of like, in my mind, and listen, he was never like a big grandiose villain in the first place, but it does, in my mind, kind of knock him down a couple of pegs as far as like what are his goals. I guess he's basically just a petty criminal at this point.
I like low rent hoods with superpowers. Now, I'm going to say to you right now that is more traditionally a Marvel thing than a DC thing broadly. Like we have Flash's Rogues Gallery, which is one of the 3 good Rogues Galleries in all of superhero comics that are all basically like low rent thugs with superpowers, right? But I love that. I love the idea that he had this big plan to cure himself and it didn't work. And then he somehow survived this near death experience in the ocean. And he was like, let me tell you what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to get rich. Are you going to get rich by robbing a giant bank? No, that's how you get Batman. I'm going to go do it real small time, but it's going to work. I like it. I don't know. I like it.
That's fun. You know what? That's a fair point. It's it's just a funny thing. It's because you're not wrong. You were totally right. It works. It makes logical sense. It makes character sense even because he was never like a big mastermind of any sort. But it's just so funny that dramatic death and his reappearance is shoplifting. I don't know. It's just a funny kind of juxtaposition, I guess, if you really think about it in the grander scheme of like both series.
Well, to put the bow on that, maybe, we may have mentioned that there were some pretty significant tonal shifts between the old show and the new show. And this perhaps demonstrates it better than anything else we could have brought up.
Well, good news. Good news for us. Bad news for Clayface. Batgirl was also in the mall and busted that crime. So good on that. I wish we could have got more Batgirl, honestly.
Well, the good news for New Batman Adventures is we are going to get a lot more Batgirl. They really figured out which side their bread was buttered on when it comes to Batgirl. We're going to see a lot more of her. And I don't think she is bad in this, but she's just not super great, like we needed to give Bullock and Montoya something to do, but I would really have preferred if it had been Batgirl's plan all along to kick him into the icy water and then throw a batarang up to make the electric cord hit him, I mean, clearly that was her plan, but I wish that she had just executed it. At the same time, we needed Montoya and Bullock to do, anything.
Yeah, I'll give or take. We get some great comedy. We lose out on some Batgirl action, but it's fine. Now, Joshua, are you ready to move on to the final holiday of New Year's Eve, December 31st?
Well, yes, except technically there's like a mini fourth vignette here. So you're talking like there's three, and there are three big ones, but we are going to have to talk about the mini vignette also. But yeah, let's talk about this Joker plot that is actually really good.
Okay, I guess. Oh, wait, are you referring to the Gordon Batman piece?
Yes.
Okay.
The New Year's Day.
That is actually my favorite part of this whole episode. So, yeah.
100% agree.
Certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. New Year's Eve, the Joker shows up, and I gotta say, this is probably my favorite one of the main three villain plots. I mean, it's nothing fancy, but it just feels like a good old-fashioned Joker thing.
I think I like Ivy and Harley better, but this is a better plot. But I just think I like the other one better. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. Yeah. It's super simple. I love the line, and this is where they start talking about killing and stuff. So the Joker's New Year's resolution is not to specifically kill anyone for the next year. I love the line, a countdown of victims that will end at midnight unless our Dark Knight can stop me first. I just counting down to like the New Year. I don't know. It's fun. I also I think it's a clever plot to, give everyone at the New Year's party Joker masks.
Yes, it's very good.
Yeah, it's just fun. Like, there's not any depth to it. It's not, there's not much to it. It's just fun. And randomly, Tim Drake's Robin's there.
This could have been a full 22-minute episode on its own. I don't think we're missing anything without it being one, but it could have carried an entire episode. It is very, very good. And the whole, I'm going to hide, but also everybody's going to die with a smile because of these masks, because he's not using Joker gas, right?
Right.
So how am I going to make him die with a smile? Yeah, love it. Love it.
And also, we see the redesigned dead, laugh to death people, the Joker is victims with the big grins. I feel like it's more eerier in this animation
even worse.
style. It is, because the smile's
even
bigger.
More scary. Yeah. They all get the chalky skin. It's worse. That's another glow up for the redesign right there.
Yeah. But I don't have a ton to say about that. I just enjoy kind of going back to what we've been saying about like the workman-like Batman Joker stories. This feels like another one appropriately themed to New Year's Eve, and I love that Batman ultimately foils the Joker's plan with a champagne bottle pop. I loved it.
Knocked him out first.
I know.
So many tables turned. I love it.
Yeah. It was a fun time. And again, just to remind everyone, the Joker's redesign's garbage. But anyway, moving on from
Nope, I have one more pet peeve. The henchman grabbing Robin's cape and yanking him backwards. I am very salty about this show not liking capes, and I am really better not see any more of it, especially because Tim Drake is literally the guy in the comic books who they used to introduce the idea that if you yank too hard on any of the Bat family's capes, first of all, it pops off, and second of all, it shocks the living crap out of you. It is a taser. So they literally use Tim Drake in the comics to show what happens when someone yanks on a cape. And in this show, it works. I hate it. I hate it. I'm very upset about it.
I think you don't like The Incredibles very much, do you?
The Incredibles is a complex work that is more nuanced than people give it credit for, but also not as good as people give it credit for.
All right. Fair enough.
Hey, patrons, we dare you to tell us that you want that bonus episode.
Ask for it. We might deliver it. So, yes, Joshua, the last mini vignette, which I don't think is officially labeled as a separate one, and they reference the Joker piece, but
yes.
It's definitely a separate story, and it's easily my favorite of the bunch, honestly.
I really love it, and the reason that I'm prepared to kind of shift it away from it's like it obviously happens right after or very shortly after the Joker stuff, but Joker stuff is also predicated on it being New Year's Eve. They've been showing us different days in the holiday season, right? And New Year's Eve is what Joker's is based on, and this is obviously New Year's Day. And so I'm just, whether they like it or not, whatever, that's January 1, it's a different vignette.
No, it is. Well, it feels like a coda at the end, right? Like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
This holiday season's been kind of crazy, but you know what? I can count on having a cup of hot chocolate with between Gordon and Batman after New Year's Eve is all said and done. Yeah, I like it a lot. It just shows that those guys have their relationship is not just a working relationship. I mean, they trust each other. They're friends. They're really friends. They're really
actual friends. It's a weird friendship. I have a big soft spot for the Batman-Gordon friendship because it is bizarre. It's not exactly 100% professional, but it's also not 100% personal. It's weird, but they both obviously treasure it in big and small ways, and I love it. I just love that. I just love it.
Yep. It's that weird line where it's definitely a conflict of interest, yet they both get the results they want, so they continue to do it. And they trust each other in the work like they personally know each other.
Yeah.
But they don't. So it's a weird one. But I love moments like this really just cement that these guys are friends and do have a built-in trust and are ultimately trying to accomplish the same goals, which, is going to be a theme they play with a little bit more in the new Batman adventures than they did, say, in the Batman the Animated Series. So
that's true. I'm going to say one more thing about this scene myself that again, I have like an extra special soft spot for. But that scene, that just short little scene of them tapping their glasses and Gordon saying, "Here's to survival," that as an animated GIF has really just become something really near and dear to me because that is something that my cousin Ethan and I have been sending to one another on New Year's Day for several years now.
Oh, nice.
It feels like a particularly meaningful sentiment as we make our way through a post-2016 world.
Yeah.
I will relish the opportunity to send him that this New Year's Day and mean it just as much, but also more than I have ever before. Friends, here's to survival.
Here's to survival. Cheers to that. Man, Joshua, that was touching. I had never thought about it that way. But yes.
Ethan did it to me first, but after that, I was just like, yep, that's our thing.
Well, Ethan, to you out there, that's a great gift. And it means just as much, but also a little more every year in a way it hadn't before. That's touching. Joshua, is there anything else you want to add about Holiday Nights today?
No, I think that about covers it. Caleb, would you like to share some of your alternate media recommendations?
I have three. I have three. So first and foremost, this is an anthology episode, which makes me think about some of my favorite anthology TV shows. And I'm going to land, for this particular episode, I'm going to land on Black Mirror. So for those of you who have Netflix, the entire series is streaming there. It is a Christmas special. That's right. You can have a Christmas special in a dark, twisted sci-fi series. very early on. It actually includes appearances from John Hamm of Mad Men fame as one of the main characters, and it's called White Christmas. White Christmas, Black Mirror, really fun. But it is a very well-constructed episode. There's a core mystery that you're trying to unravel throughout, but it also includes 3 separate stories that are connected in ways you wouldn't quite expect, which is really interesting because the series as a whole is built the same way. These are all unrelated stories. They're kind of sort of connected, but they're all their own story. And White Christmas has a way of telling 3 separate mini vignettes that all tie into a bigger story that's saying some really terrifying things about the technology we deal with in our world in 2019. So check that out. It's on Netflix, and you don't have to have seen any other episode of the show to appreciate it. Next up, obligatory Smallville recommendation, which is the season 5.
We've got to stop this, by the way. Friends, I'm going to do my best to ensure that this is the last Smallville rec. But yes, this is a really good one. Caleb, do go on.
Okay, so season 5, Lexmas. Okay, so it basically, long story short, it comes at a very pivotal point in Lex Luthor's arc in the series. More or less, he has had a weird romantic tension with Lana Lang, and he gets shot in an alley by some disgruntled employee, I believe, and goes into a coma in which he has a dream in which he abandoned his wealth to marry Lana and, kind of settle for a more middle-class lifestyle. And things are great. I like it because it's kind of a combination of It's a Wonderful Life and also The Christmas Carol. There's elements of both that are interwoven. And I like what it tells you about the character in this show. This is a character who is given more or less, he's given some very clear choices throughout the show, and we see him make both good and bad choices all the way throughout. But it's interesting. Lexmas is a great episode because it demonstrates that even when he is given a moral of the story that is meant to guide him, he still somehow takes all of the wrong lessons from it, and it marks a turning point for his character. And truthfully, the next couple, basically, I would say the rest of the series, the rest of season 5, season 6, and season 7, all kind of build off of the story that's told in this episode, and it's really powerful. I enjoy it quite a bit. And lastly, another animated superhero recommendation, X-Men Evolution, not to be confused with X-Men the animated series. X-Men Evolution had a really fun, interesting, and I think memorable. It could just be nostalgia, but I seem to recall liking it quite a lot, which is on Angel's Wings and marks the introduction of Angel into the X-Men Evolution series. And there's just a lot of great character interactions, is more than anything. It's a Christmas episode. There's a lot of the same stuff you'd expect, goofy Christmas stuff, subplots, the holiday cheer, all of that's there. But there's just the heartwarming moments where characters who might not like each other set those things aside so they can spend time together. I don't know. I like it. Holds a soft spot in my heart. X-Men Evolution on Angel's Wings. And good news for listeners, it is slated to be on the new Disney Plus, right?
Yes.
Streaming service. So good news for you guys. You can check it out pretty soon, if it's not already readily available.
That is a very good show, and I am going to recommend something that isn't superhero stuff, but I'm going to second your emotion there. Superhero Christmas stories tend to follow a certain pattern and have some beats, but I nevertheless just really super duper love them. I have one in mind I could go pull off my shelf right now, where the world's greatest detective solves a crime because the Christmas star shows him where the bad things are going on. Right. And I'm like, it's fine. I love it. I'm good. However, I'll diverge, and my alternate media recommendation will be 1994's The Ref, mostly because it is another Christmas that goes horribly awry once criminals get involved, but it's funny. So, also, it has some people in it that we have since discovered some horrible things about. I recognize that that's a fact, and your mileage on whether you can still enjoy this movie may vary based on that. That is entirely up to you. But it fits the theme of criminals get involved in Christmas, and Christmas goes wonky, and we laugh.
It's 2019, folks. Make your own decisions and and take it for what it's worth. It's good.
That about wraps it up for this animated discussion. If you enjoyed this conversation and would like to join in, come find us on Twitter. Caleb is at CMastersTalk, and I am at Joshua Unruh, and the hashtag is Animated Discussion. Caleb, where else can people find you?
Well, I am the editor-in-chief and contributor at the Cinematropolis, a website dedicated to in-depth film critique and film analysis. We also have a monthly podcast, The Cinematic Schematic, where I'm joined by Laurent Chapman and a number of other guest co-hosts to do reviews, analysis on new releases, and also sometimes talk with filmmakers. You can find the podcast wherever your podcasts are found, or at thecinematropolis.com.
Remember that an animated discussion is a Pulp Diction Productions program and is 100% supported by listeners like you. To find out how you can keep this and our other shows in production, check out patreon.com/pulpdictionproductions. Show your support by pledging at Patreon or by leaving a great review on Apple Podcasts to make it easier for more people to find us and join in the discussion.
And of course, you can find the links to Patreon, Apple Podcasts, other media recommendations, and Twitter. They're all easy to find right there in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us for this animated discussion. We'll be back next time to talk about Superman the Animated Series, fun and games.
So until next time, look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's an animated discussion.